Hello, my name is Autumn. I'm the owner of Automakers Mini Pet Pigs. I have had pet pigs since 2004. And I have a lot of experience when it comes to pig behavior, pig training, pig diet, skin, you name it. Today, we're going to talk about something. I get this question all the time, and it was a special request for a video on harness training. Harness training a pig is nothing like harness training or teaching a dog to walk on a collar and a leash. Pigs are prey animals, and so anything that is on their body that they're not used to is going to set them into a panic. They're also a flight animal, so you can imagine what they're going to want to do when they feel that harness on them. Now, here are some things you can expect when you first put a harness on your pig. Number one, loud squealing. Number two, flailing, bucking, running, trying to wiggle out of it, scraping up at it to try to push it off them, panicked behavior, heavy breathing, and again, loud squealing, because pigs, it's a threat. You know, they see it as a threat. Now we know it's not going to hurt them, but they kind of do need to work through that. And I've had a lot of people say, well, that's so mean. You know, these are people who do not have a pig at all or don't have a pig that is well behaved. It takes a lot of effort to teach a pig that a harness is safe. And the first step is getting it on them. We're going to talk about that. Now, I guess now let's go ahead and talk about some tips for getting a harness on your pig. Okay, so first of all, do not use a harness that is made for a dog. A pig harness and a dog harness are shaped differently. So here I have a pig harness. It looks similar to a dog harness, right? But here's the difference. A dog harness has the holes for its head and its body are straight down. For a pig, the front one is actually made so that it goes forward. So can you see that? This one is straight down, but this one goes forward. And the reason is that the anatomy of a pig makes it so that if you had one that's straight down, it's going to cut them weird, and they're going to actually be able to get out of it, especially one thing that a pig always does when it's afraid or it doesn't want to do something or it's being forced is it backs up. So when you have a dog harness, they back out of them very easily and they can escape them. That is not safe. So we want an actual pig harness. This one is made by a small company. Pig Gear is the name of the company. Wonderful, wonderful company. Very educated when it comes to pigs. And they have a website, piggear.com, and they also have an Etsy shop. So you can order from either one. Now, this harness, to get it on a pig, what I like to do is I like to leave the front clasp. And how do you know it's the front? You look at the top and you can see a V. Okay, there's a V. And it opens towards the head. The head of the pig will go here. So this will go under its jowl, close to its chest. Okay. And then this will go under its girth, which is its armpits. Okay. So this is how it will look on your pig. So I like to leave the front clasped. If I have a small pig, a piglet that I'm training, then I leave the front clasped and I hold them on my lap and I slide it on their neck. And then I give them a minute and I scratch them. And then I reach under and I bring this through and I clasp it. They do not like it. You need to prepare yourself for that. You also need to realize that you are not hurting your pig. You know that. I know that. Your pig doesn't know that. So it's going to take them some time to get used to it. Side note, do not use a collar on a pig. A pig has a very delicate trachea, and a collar is easily caught on things. And because pigs are crazy and they panic very easily, if it gets caught up on something, they can actually pull so hard that they break their trachea, and then that's not a happy ending for our pig. So we want to stay away from collars, and only use a harness that is made for a pig. Now, harnesses can also get caught on things, but they're not as dangerous because of where they hold them. So if they do get caught on something, they're going to panic. They could scream, squeal, flail. They kind of jump up their bodies and try to crash it against things, but try to stay calm. Okay. If your pig is freaking out because it's in a harness, there are so many things that you can do to try to calm them down. I like to feed Cheerios, and it takes them a few minutes, but they do get used to it. There's a good chance that your pig's going to wiggle out of it, especially the first time you put it on them, because you're going to be nervous that it's too tight. You're not sure how tight to put it. And so it's probably going to be too loose. And if they wiggle out of it, that's fine. You can either put it right back on them, or you can try again tomorrow. I generally start harness training around 4 or 5 weeks, depending on how large the piglets are. They have to be able to fit these extra small ones, which this is extended quite a bit, but I start harness training as soon as they're big enough that they can fit in them. So, and these are, in my opinion, these are the best. I love the pig gear ones. Now, on a great day, they're going to keep it on. And yay, that's wonderful. They keep it on and they get used to the feeling. They really do. After like the first day of having it on, they really calm down and forget it's even there. They don't like having it put on. It takes several weeks. It could even be several months of constantly putting it on them every morning for them to let you do that. It's very scary for them. So I try to do it as quickly as possible. If they keep it on the first day, then I usually leave it on, because where my piglets are, there's nothing for it to get caught on. So I don't have any issues with them getting caught up on anything. Now, if where your pig is, you're worried about them having it on all the time, fine. Then put it on in the morning, take it off in the evening. It's totally up to you what you want to do. And there's no absolute right or wrong answer. I like to leave mine on because if I have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 piglets that I'm training, then it's more convenient for me. It doesn't really matter for them. Like I said, if I had things that they were getting caught up on, then I would probably change what I do. But as of right now, we don't have any issues with that. 2 people can make the job easier. Let me grab a stuffed animal here. Okay. So here is our pig, right? So if we have a pig that we're putting a harness on, then we're going to have to hold them. So what I like to do is this, there's no way this is going to fit on this pig, but what I like to do is keep the front clasped and slide it on. Now let's pretend this isn't too tight. This is way too tight, obviously. So get it on. And I like to hold them in my lap, because I can hold them on my lap and I can keep them on my lap and I can get that on. And then the back, then as they're on my lap, then I can easily clasp it underneath if it wasn't too tight for this big old chubby piggy. And you just want to make sure that you don't pinch them. That is a thing. You don't want to associate this harness with anything else scary. It's already scary enough. Okay, so all right, so there we go. This is how it fits on a pig. And now that's how I do it. I put him on my lap and I just kind of slide it over and then clasp it under. Now, 2 people, it's a lot easier. So for 2 people, what I do is I will hold my pig up like this, and they're going to be moving. So I hold them like this, and then my son or somebody will clasp it around their neck and then bring it under and clasp it here. And sometimes if I hold onto their legs and kind of spread their legs a little bit, then it stabilizes them, and it also makes them a little bit sleeker so that they don't get pinched. That's really probably one of the things I worry about the most, is pinching. That skin under there is it's thin and it's sensitive. So we don't want to pinch them under there. So 2 people can definitely make it a little bit easier. Once your pig does really well with having the harness put on, and like I said, it could take several weeks, it could take several months. Every pig is different depending on how you handle it. If you try not to make it super scary for them, you can involve food, feed them Cheerios. I wouldn't feed them anything that they can like really choke on, something small, so that you don't have to worry about them choking. Once they do well with that, then what I do is then I start when I feed breakfast. I feed breakfast and I lay it on their back. And a lot of times at first they're going to run, they're going to run, but they're always going to come back to their food bowl. So I just lay it on again, lay it on again. And sometimes I will slide it over their head so that part of it is on them. And then this back is unlatched. And then I can just reach down, and I am telling you, I will give them as much food as it takes to get the harness on them. Associating having their harness put on with food is one of the best things that we can do, because it's going to make it not scary. And not only that, but it's associating this thing with something really good, which is going to make them excited when we pull it out instead of see it and bolt. Again, sometimes, piglets, sometimes as they are growing, they might thin out a little bit. So your pig, may have had their harness on every day for 30 days. You put it on, and then on the 31st day, you're like, how the heck did you get out of that harness? And they might slip it, and that's okay. It's okay. But sometimes what'll happen is they will slide out of the harness a little bit, and they'll get it here to where it's on them around their torso. And that is even scarier. So what they're going to do is they're going to freak out. They're going to buck. They're going to scream. I know if this happens in our house, even though I can't see my pigs, because they hardly make any noise except when this happens. They scream so loud. It's ridiculous. So if that happens, it's all right. What I do is if I can get close enough to them to unlatch it, great. But they're always so spooked that sometimes I can't. So then what I'll do is I'll just grab a hold of that back loop and just kind of tug it backwards until it slides off their body. And then once it's off, they're totally fine. It's literally that squeezing that they don't like. It's very scary. If you can get your pig's harness on every day, and this is not a small accomplishment. So if you can do it, it's amazing. But once your pig is really good about just having the harness on all day, then it's time to leash train. Specifically had a question, what is the difference between harness training and leash training? There's a huge difference. Harness training is just getting the harness on them and them keeping it on all day. I also wanted to mention that when it comes to the harness, you'll know when it's time to extend it a little bit, because you won't be able to snap it, or you won't be able to snap it as easily. When you have it on the pig around the neck, what goes here around the neck, it doesn't have to be super tight. It just has to touch the skin. It doesn't have to be, you don't want it hanging because it will never stay on, but it doesn't have to be tight around the neck. Where it should be tight is around the girth. So you want it to fit snugly around the girth. That's not going to hurt them. You don't want it to choke them. So you want it to be to where it's loose enough that it touches the skin, but you can get a finger under it. And they're not, they will do that if it's too tight. They'll just kind of, so watch for that. Just make sure it's not too tight. You'll know if it's too loose because they'll wiggle out of it. And if you're paranoid about having it too tight, please get over that, because it is actually, in my experience, better that it's a little tight than loose when you're outside on a leash. And you don't want your pig to back out of it, get out of it somewhere public or by a straight street. That is extremely dangerous. So I would much rather it be a little tight than a little loose. Now, when it comes to leash training is completely different. Leash training means teaching a pig to walk on a leash. And again, it is not something that they naturally understand or even want to do. So when I leash train a pig, the first thing I do is I just clip the leash. Now, if you have, I don't know about bigger pigs. I'm usually leash training smaller pigs around like 9 or 10 pounds. So they're small. And the clasp for a leash, which I didn't bring one up here with me, but the clasp that goes right here is kind of heavy. When you put it on them, they're like, whoa, what is that? That is heavy. And they don't like it. It's scary. So I just clip the leash and then I just let them go where they want. I'll even let them drag it as long as they're not going to drag it in a litter box. I'm over that. I don't like that happening. If that's the case, then I just hold it up, but I don't put any pressure on it. I just leave it real loose. When they get to a point where I clip that leash on them and they are okay, they don't have any reaction to it, then I will start putting small amounts of pressure on it. And they do tend to freak out. They buck, they throw their bodies on the ground and they're trying to get away. They're trying to scare you away in that scary leash. But I just stick with it. And then I try to do it. I try that first session. I try to stay with it until the pig has calmed down. Now you're going to see a lot of low head, eyes looking up, panting because they're afraid and they're not sure what's going on. So if you can get over that hump with treats, Cheerios, whatever it might be, I wouldn't give anything dry that they could choke on, but what I like to do is I like to throw a little Cheerio right in front of their face. So, oh, look at that. And then they're freaking out, and then another Cheerio and another Cheerio and another Cheerio. And what I do is I try to make a line so that they have to walk. And then if I can get their mind off of what feels scary, then they adapt much more quickly. And then once they're fine with a little bit of pressure on the leash, then I start walking and I do the same thing. Either I toss Cheerios in front of their face as we're walking so that they're making progress forward, or one of my sons walks in front of us and drops Cheerios. So by doing that, we're teaching them to walk on the leash, and it takes a lot of patience, And you need to make sure that your pig is able to walk with you quite well before you take them anywhere, because pigs in new places don't always do well. There's new noises, there's new smells, there's so many other factors that can be scary for them. And then it can be very embarrassing. Even if your pig lets you hold them at home or walks on a leash at home, when you get somewhere new, there's a good chance that they're going to scream or squeal to try to get away from whatever is scaring them. So start out at home and get them to a point where they're doing really well with a harness, really well on a leash, and then start taking them out in the yard and maybe walking a little bit back and forth on the sidewalk out front or around your house or whatever until they really get good at that, and then try taking them somewhere. Unless you're adventurous and you just want to jump in. I do tend to be that way. Let's just see what happens. But I'm not afraid of people staring at me. I'm not afraid of being embarrassed by squealing. I am not super afraid of a piglet getting away from me because I know how to keep them from slipping out of a harness. And so all of these things, it depends a lot on you. Are you going to be embarrassed if your piglet is screaming and squealing? Most first-time pig owners are, but veterans usually are not. So if you have a question that you would like me to cover in my YouTube channel, please put it in the comments below. I would be happy to do that for you. If you need help with your pig, if you're struggling with harness training, if you're struggling with leash training, please reach out to me. In my educational membership group on Mighty Networks, I have so many more tips and demonstrations, all kinds of things that can help support you, giving you the confidence you need to care for your pig so that they can thrive. Thanks so much for watching this video. I'll see you next week.